Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So today I will be presenting my master's methods, and I started with my thesis this year. Project is done in collaboration with the City of Cape Town, the Invasive Species Unit, and the Centre of Invasion Biology at Stellenbosch University. Okay, so sometimes the mere removal of invasive alien plants does not restore the natural vegetation cover and ecosystem functioning, and you need to do additional restoration measures to put the ecosystems on the path of recovery. There are two types of restoration. You have passive restoration, which is just the removal of invasive alien plants, and then you have active restoration, where additional measures are taken, such as introducing native species. So my study will take place in the City of Cape Town, which is unique in the sense that it encompasses a very large area. The municipality covers almost 2,500 square kilometers, and the city hosts more than 1,400 plant species. So my study will encompass 3 chapters. I will just discuss the first 2 chapters, and the last chapter is to develop a framework to prioritize active and passive restoration sites. So the first research gap that I've identified is that there's no protocol to identify areas for active restoration after alien plant invasion. And I would like to address this gap by developing a framework to identify these areas needing active and passive restoration. This is important since if clearing projects fail, you get the reinvasion and secondary invasion of these areas and the wasting of resources. So this will be done by identifying ecological factors from the literature that would help identify when active restoration would most likely be needed. These factors will be divided into different categories and given a weighting on how likely they are to need active restoration. So this is an example of some of the factors that I might use, and as an example of how I would use these ecological factors is, example, the density of invasion, where the increase in percentage of cover will indicate that they have a higher likelihood of needing active restoration. So these ecological factors will be presented by spatial data layers, where each area will be assigned their weight based on the category, and all these layers will be added together. Each area will then have a value indicating its likelihood of needing active restoration. The second research gap is that some of the conceptual models and theoretical frameworks that have been developed have not been empirically tested, and I would like to address this research gap in my second chapter by actually testing the assumptions that I make in the framework at a site scale in the lowland fynbos. This will be done by sampling acacia and pine invaded areas along a density of invasion gradients, and also then a recently cleared and burnt densely invaded site, and compare these sites to a reference area and compare it in relation to the species composition, structure, and function. And I will then be able to assess whether these long invaded areas have the ability to passively restore or whether active restoration should have been applied. I will also then sample the factors that I used in the first chapter and to analyze whether they are able to explain the ability to passively restore, and if they can be used to predict whether areas would most likely need active restoration. So I'd like to provide at the end a decision-making framework for land use managers and researchers in order for them to decide whether active restoration would be needed. I'd like to thank my supervisors and all the sponsors.